Hello and welcome to the Cord Roundtable here on Radio Laurier. My name's Kate. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Cord. I'm here in studio with opinion editor Moyo Arwa. We have Cara Pettica. And I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Spencer you just told me. Gibara.
Yo, what's up?
Spencer and Cara are two of our opinion columnists, and they're here to talk to us about their pieces that they recently wrote. Moyo, do you want to take it away?
Yes, 2 weeks ago, in the issue before the reading week, Spencer wrote what would turn out to be a very controversial article on abortion. He was clearly pro-life, unlike a lot of people on campus, I suppose. And that prompted Cara to write some sort of a response to that, and we found out after that she had gone through an experience of her own, and I suppose she'll be talking about that today. So, Cara, can you just
jump right into it?
Yeah,
just take it away.
Dive in.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, in response to Spencer's article, I knew that I wanted to write something that was pro-choice,
right,
so to speak. Knowing that I had this experience as I was writing it, I kind of was approaching it without my personal kind of story attached to it, and then I realized as I moved further into it that it would have more merit if I kind of could have this opinion as well. And I think that it's an issue that's kind of gendered. Like, I understand that if somebody becomes pregnant, it takes two to tango in that situation, but
right.
It would have been my body that was affected, and in fact it was my body that was affected, and so that's kind of what I wrote and why I wrote it. And everyone's been really good about it. I know Spencer has had a lot of slack from the university. I haven't had a lot of criticism, probably because it's a personal story.
Right.
And I wasn't really aggressively pushing an opinion upon anyone, which I would argue is kind of what Spencer's article.
That's fine. Were you angered? When you read it?
No, I wasn't angered at all, because I don't think that, for me, I just didn't think he understood.
Right.
Which, I don't know, maybe that's mean to say, because maybe you feel as though you understand. Yeah, no, I'm not angry because that's your opinion. But it was my reality, which is the difference, if that makes sense.
So in your article, you talked a little bit about, not regret, but the guilt of the experience. So can you sort of tell us exactly?
Yeah, so in Spencer's article, a big thing for me that the thing that did bother me was this idea that it's kind of thoughtless, and so it was extremely thought out, given you only have a little bit of time to consider a choice to make and the right choice to make, and you have to consider money and then your family and literally the next 18 years of your life within a certain amount of time. And I think that there's maybe this misconception that it's this thing that you do and you kind of walk away and you're like, whew, like, missed that one.
Right.
And it comes, like, it carries with you. You take it everywhere you go, every time you see a new baby, every time. Like, I'm not with that boy anymore, but every time I would see him, I think of it. And I've even gone so far to think that when I get pregnant again, I'm assuming that it will be, like, planned that time, hopefully. I don't really know if I would regard that as my first child. Like, right. I've even thought that, and so there's that guilt. Like, it stays with you and it becomes a part of who you are. Like, it wasn't an easy choice or an easy experience, so, yeah.
Right. So Spencer, did Cara's article in any way make you more sympathetic, or did he change your opinion entirely?
Well, I want to make clear, I've always been very sympathetic to everyone who has to undergo such an experience.
Right.
And for someone to put out their personal experience about, having an abortion into the student paper for everyone to read, that takes a lot of courage, and I definitely admire that courage. Just 2 points I kind of want to address. The first one, I did not, I hope I didn't come off this way, maybe I did. I did not mean to make it sound as if people don't put any thought into having an abortion, because I'm very sure that 99.99% of abortions take serious consideration. But I also want to pick up on that. The pro-choice side does say it's not a life. It's an irrelevant piece of tissue. Someone even wrote a response comparing it to a tumor. And, if it's not a life and it is a tumor and it's some sort of irrelevant piece of goo, as Sarah Silverman put it once, then it shouldn't be a thoughtful decision. It should be an easy decision. But we know it's not an easy decision. And I think we know it's not an easy decision because in our heart of hearts, we know that it is a life. And we have to respect that. I fail to see how someone can say it's not a life, it's irrelevant, it's just some obscure organism, but then say, oh, it was very hard to go through it. I mean, obviously it is hard to go through it. And the reason it's hard to go through it is because we do know that it is a life. And the second point I wanted to bring up, saying that, men can't have an opinion. I also find this very strange because they say, oh, men aren't affected, therefore they can't have an opinion. That's as if saying the only people that can have an opinion on the death penalty are criminals that are in prison because they'll be affected if we have the death penalty.
Right.
And in Canada, abortions are publicly funded. I pay for other people's abortions. That definitely it means that I do have a right to comment on how our money is being spent and what should be legal and what doesn't. And people say, oh, that's not sexist, but it is sexist if you say a certain gender or cannot have an opinion on something. That's sexist. Right,
and that's obviously. There's some people who certainly disagree with what you've just said, but we're also very interested to know how you dealt with some of the direct criticisms on your first article. I mean, some of it were thoughtful, and the others were thoughtless. But how did you deal with both the thoughtful and thoughtless responses?
Right. Well, I want to give a big shout out to the University of Waterloo Liberal Facebook group, because I posted my article in there and I got nothing but, for the most part, nothing but very thoughtful and educated rebuttals, and I was very impressed. But then there was another side to it, where I started getting personal attacks to some point, which I thought had no place on a university campus. One person went as far as to try and get me, fired from the court and get me taken off the board of directors. And they were saying that my point of view somehow has a role in the board of directors. My good friend and chair of the board, Matt McLean, he's pulling his hair out because on the board we do not discuss these issues. We don't have a euthanasia vote that comes up on the board and we say, okay, who agrees, who disagrees. Those opinions have nothing to do with what we do on the board of directors. So to act as if there's some sort of weird conflict of interest or something, I mean, it's totally absurd. And I also find it troubling that we can't have it seems like we can't have a discussion on this issue. Someone was offended that I wrote something, therefore I should not be speaking at all. That's a big problem we have. And on a campus like this, which I love Laurier, and I love the students at Laurier, and on a campus like this, I find that incredibly destructive to the public discourse.
And I think we can all agree with that, Cara, Kate, and I. And that's the point, right?
Well,
I mean, to the point that no one should be silenced.
I agree that nobody should be silenced. But I also think that if you're going to have what I would call an extremist sort of opinion,
being pro-life is extremist?
Yeah. The thing is, the article, it was an opinion piece,
right.
And I just like spit. It was an opinion piece, but it was kind of preachy. It was a little bit preachy, like, this is my opinion, but it's the right opinion. And that, I think, is where a lot of people kind of hit this wall, and they're like, actually, I might not share this opinion, but I also don't respect that. You know what I mean? Being told that is what I should think. Because we can sit in the room and have a discussion and have two different opinions, and I'm not saying that my way is right. Maybe it's not right for you. It was right for me, but you literally in your article said the more that you think about it, the more it becomes right. And you didn't say right for me. And I was even like kind of going through it in brackets. I put for me.
An opinion article or any sort of piece of writing that is meant to persuade would present, even if only implicitly, would present whatever has been written as the right thing to do. When Marx wrote about Marxism, he presented it as the right thing to do. Right. But so that's always going to happen, right? And even your article, even not explicitly, implicitly,
I specifically did not put that I was right, because even to this day I still question it, but a huge thing that I wanted to discuss. Also this idea of it being this little cluster of cells, and it's like, how can you feel guilty? Because you kind of know that it is a life. well, it's kind of the alternative. You know it's going to turn into a life, and you have this little bit of a countdown.
Right.
And it is, in fact, this little cluster of cells, and that's why fetuses, I don't know if that's how you say it, plural, they don't have rights. And I was thinking about it, and I was kind of like, if the little fetus had a right, that right would kind of negate my rights. Do you know what I mean? And if I was to abort that, then that makes me a murderer. First of all, if that's taken away, which is kind of what your article was suggesting, that if you take away, that we should eliminate this in Canada, this as an option, this as you paying taxes for it, etc. I think that women are going to find ways to have abortions, and they would be very unsafe, and that would make it illegal. So me having an abortion would then be illegal. I would either go to jail, or I would have to be forced to have a baby, and I think that, where is my rights in that? And I think that's why a lot of the criticism you received was from women, and it was because it kind of boiled down to a man telling them what their body was good for. And so it wasn't necessarily what your opinion was, and it wasn't necessarily what you wrote or how you wrote it. It was kind of this really basic idea that it's, at the end of the day, we are the ones who have to bear both child and responsibility. And I mean, you guys can get off. I mean, if you live with a woman, that's awesome. If you're supportive, that's awesome. But a lot of the times, that's not the case. And you guys, men, pay child support, not during the months of pregnancy, which kind of negates the fact that the child is a person during those months of pregnancy. But yeah, it just, to me, it's, I don't know, those are the things that I considered as well.
Well, just to pick up on three small things there. You said that a lot of my criticisms have been from women, and that's true. However, I've also received a copious amount of Facebook messages, and all of them, without one exception, have been from women who said, I'm so thankful that you wrote about this. And they explicitly said in almost all the messages, I was scared to voice this opinion because of how other people would react and what we've seen. All right, and so that's a problem. And to try and turn this to a man versus woman thing, I mean, the abortion debate is so complex. There's not some strict dividing line. Women are on the pro-life side, and they're on the pro-choice side. So to kind of turn into a man versus women, men's rights, women's rights, that stuff, that's kind of a disingenuous way of going forward. Also, when we talk about, this gets thrown around a lot, when we talk about the, quote, right to an abortion, in Canada, the Supreme Court has not ruled, ever, that there is a right to an abortion, nor is there a right to an abortion in our charter. Pierre Trudeau, when he introduced the charter, even stated he believed at the time when this was being introduced that this would not lead to abortion in Canada. And all it is, abortion has no real state in Canadian law. That's the thing. So saying that I have a right to an abortion, that's just not founded in the legal principles in Canada. And I feel that kind of gets lost. And quick last point, to say, and lots of people were upset about this, I was saying my opinion is right. I would challenge people to ask, do they have an opinion that they think is wrong? If you're stating an opinion, it's something you believe. It would be contradictory to say, I believe this, but I know I'm wrong. It doesn't make much sense. The whole point of an opinion is to state your opinion, what you believe, why you believe it. I tried to be as respectful as possible. Some people didn't think so. A lot of people thought I was respectful. But the whole point is, you think you're right, you will write an opinion piece explaining why you think you're right. It's implicit in your writing that you think it's right, or whatever your opinion is.
So whether or not your opinion explicitly or says that I think I'm right, the fact that it's an opinion article, and hopefully the fact that it's taken one side or another, is propagating that idea that this is the right thing to do, right?
I kind of feel like it would be the equivalent of arguing. First of all, I'm just really quickly going to interject, and I'm going to say, based off of the abortion not having rights, it's because I have rights as a person. That's why there's no abortion rights, because my personhood means more than a clump of cellhood. And that is exactly why. And that is in the charter. My individual person rights are in the charter, and my bodily sovereignty is written into our constitutional charter, and that option is available to me. And moving forward to the next question is, wait, what was it? What was the question?
Well, we're talking about just the integrity of an article and whether or not you should be
Oh yeah,
able to...
I was just going to say, if you were to write about, because it's kind of a heated topic, right? Like if you were to write about something like racism and somebody was blatantly racist, I honestly think that you're going to meet kind of a lot of contention. And I think that...
Well, there's a difference between being racist and being pro-life.
No, because
I
the thing is,
certainly
pro-life,
don't think-
I would say pro-life runs extremely parallel to a gendered issue. And to me, like the idea, I seriously...
Well, he just said that he got a lot of messages from women.
Yeah,
and
because
women of
it's a
color,
women's issue.
women of color as well. Overwhelmingly
no,
women
I'm
of
not
color.
saying, I was using just like race as an example. It's a completely separate
Right,
example.
he says that he got a lot of messages on Facebook
From women,
from
because...
women supporting.
And I
his
can show you.
article.
But that's the thing too, where they, I don't think that...
That do you think they were misguided? in
I
this
don't know,
approach,
like, and then
or
I question, like, are those people feminists as well? Because, like, it's a huge topic to me. Like, I don't know, I think it's...
what does
it's
being
completely-
feminist have to do with...
Just the equality. That I think that you don't have to agree with it, but you don't have to take away my right to it.
But I
That's
think
my thing. Like, these women, if one of them were to get pregnant tomorrow and they wanted to move forward however they please, awesome, but they do not need to take that choice away from somebody else. That's my
understandable.
argument.
But I think it's also, when you just say feminist, I think that's misleading. I'm in political science, and we learned very early on there are so many branches of feminism. What one person may view as feminist, other feminists may say, hey, no, that's not feminism. So to just say...
No, but you know what? At the very, very basic level, feminism is the equality,
Of women,
the economic, political
gender.
equality of both genders. And
Right.
and me being kind of rendered as this conventional oven to host a baby because you can't get pregnant, so automatically that's disproportionate.
But,
do you understand? Like,
but
that's
that's
not
biological. I can't breastfeed, but that's just
yeah,
biological.
that's how it is. But that's also moving forward. We all have, I don't know, the ability to kind of think and be like, hey, maybe that's not so fair that you're the one who has to kind of plow through that.
But I mean, is it not fair that there's gravity on Earth? I mean, it's just a part of nature. So what's I mean, obviously there's tons of feminist theory, Judith Butler, etc., that we could get into. I mean, I think that's time for another radio show. But we're kind of turning off of the issue of what defines life. And when we're talking about, we know, and this is what I wrote in the article, and people really, I think almost purposely misread what I said to try and come to a certain conclusion. What I wrote in the article was that when we're talking about a fetus, what you call a fetus, what are those characteristics? We know that it's a living organism of some sort, and if it's living, by definition, it is a life of some sort. We also know that it cannot be, a horse, a dog. It has to be a human. Therefore, it's a human life. And that was the whole. That was the opening remarks of my article. And people have just kind of taken one little element of that and said, oh, well, you said a human, it's slightly human. What happens if it's your skin? That's part of human DNA, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, let's try and restrain ourselves from going too deep into the arguments and go back to the overarching issue of opinions, voicing opinions on the paper, and for the people, the students on campus to read. I mean, do you agree, for example,
every single thing
with
that I've read, I haven't read personal messages that you've gotten.
Right.
And yeah, like you said, a lot of people that maybe kind of agreed with you, maybe sent you a personal email because it's kind of a heated topic and they don't
Right.
want to be attacked themselves, right?
Right.
But I think
So
I was going through them today, the Facebook messages, like the emails that I could see, posts and comments, and I could pick apart things I agreed with. Sometimes maybe they were a little bit angrily written, so that makes them lose a little bit of credibility.
Right.
But they were all founded in some kind of basis of truth formed by other people's opinions, and I don't think, like, you might not like it and it might not run parallel to what your article was written with, but writing something like that, it's a heated topic, you're going to get criticism. And the only reason I didn't is because I used a personal story. If I wrote specifically just like a pro-choice story and was kind of like, this is why pro-choice is better, and this is why it's horrible to have an anti-opinion perspective, anti-abortion perspective, I definitely would have gotten slack for that. But because I kind of like sidestepped it because I inserted, like, who's going to be like, you made the worst life decision. Like, no one's going to do that. That'd be like a horrible person. but it puts a face to it because it does just happen. Like in your article, you said it doesn't just happen, and the only reason it wouldn't just happen is if you were abstinent. And I don't think that that's reality for a lot of people. So yeah, I think you're definitely going to get a lot of slack. And the girl who was trying to get you removed from the board or whatever, I think when I read that, it was more or less, I'm not sure the process is if you're voted into the board or how that works, but you're representative of the student body, and I think it was questionable. To me, it's not questionable, but maybe for her, she was kind of like, this is the person representing me, and like, again, it boils down to this idea that he's telling me how, like, what my rights should be, and taking away from that self.
But
well, it's sort of analogous to, Stephen Harper, conservative, representing Canadians. Some conservatives, some liberals, some
I suppose
right.
so.
And when I,
But that's true. But it's true that like we do vote our student body in, and so for somebody to have like this extremist opinion, of course, obviously you're not going to be kicked off. But of course, if somebody's going to be like, "Hey, I don't want that."
feel right, yeah.
That person is supposed to you're kind of as specific as it is. You're kind of supposed to be a little bit neutral. Like you kind of have to accept everyone, even if you go home behind closed doors and are like. And I know they're not sitting around like the table having these pro-life debates on the board, like that's crazy.
And even if he was having pro-life debates with,
then it would be a different story though, because we would all be.
Well, if I can interject here, the thing that bothers me about that circumstance, and it's
conflict
that
of interest.
it's, and like you said, it's not, people are voted in to the board. It's completely separate from what your opinion is. You didn't write the opinion piece on behalf of the board and behalf of Wulusu.
Right.
And I understand that people get offended when they hear opinions they don't believe in. But there are other people that believe your opinion. Like it's
exactly.
Yeah.
And just a couple things to say. It's an extremist point of view. I mean, polls show that about 30% of Canadians are pro-life. And we have no current laws on abortion, and actually the majority of Canadians would support some sort of law on abortion, whether it's within the first trimester or not. So to say that it's an extremist point of view, being racist, that's an extremist point of view. Being pro-life is not an extremist point of view. And I was voted in to the board of directors, and I don't think I could have been any clearer with my politics at that moment. I was writing conservative pieces for the court at that moment. Putting up things on Facebook, conservative things. Even on my poster, I had Rob Ford slogans on my poster when I was running for the board. I mean, I wasn't hiding my views from the public, and people elected me, and and I keep my politics out of the board. You can look at the transcripts. I've never brought up abortion on the board of directors. I never will bring up abortion on the board of directors.
I hope you don't.
Yeah, and in fact,
be incredibly relevant.
and in fact, I even affirmed my commitment to representing all students when at the early days of being on the board. So it's not some Wulusu opinion; it's my opinion. And to try and shut me up and shut me down because you disagree, it's kind of shocking. The person who wrote a response to me, a letter to the editor that was published in the court, there were some personal attacks in there. She said she's a part of the diversity office, and what happened to diversity of opinion? What happened to that's a part of diversity, and thank God the overwhelming majority of people in the diversity office are very open-minded, very kind people, and fighting for a lot of things that I believe in. But to say that you're a part of the diversity office and to all of a sudden want someone to lose their right to freedom of speech because you disagree with them, that's troublesome, and that's actually harmful
No,
to Canada.
I disagree because I completely disagree. If it was any other instance, I'd be like, yeah, maybe, but the thing is, what your opinion was saying was that my freedom of self was less than.
But again...
Less than what?
Than having a child.
But again, the Supreme Court of Canada has
but
never ruled on that.
Now I'm focusing on the diversity office comment. I'm just saying that, to me, the idea...
Right, you're saying
you can't take, everybody's allowed to their opinion. Everyone's allowed... Yeah, everybody...
It's freedom of speech. Everyone's allowed to say what they believe.
What you believe isn't always what's factual or
Oh,
true.
of course not. So someone lies, they
so-
get thrown in prison. You know, you lose your right to freedom of speech because you said something that's not true.
It's just your freedom of speech is taking away my freedom of self, and so that's
But
why
it's
I
not
have a
But it's
taking
not.
away.
You didn't.
Absolutely it
But
is.
you didn't lose your right. You could have
No,
you
absolutely
could
it
get
is.
pregnant,
And
have an abortion tomorrow. My peace in the court did not affect that.
But people are allowed to be to contest your opinion. Of
course, people can
and
contest
they're
my
allowed to have
opinion.
an opinion just the same as you.
Of
are
course
allowed
they
to have.
can. I'm not. I'm saying when it
So-
enters the realm of personal attack and wanting me and saying you should be fired from the court for having an opinion. That's an issue.
from the court,
You
that's
should.
I mean, it's
Because
almost like
We
someone.
have. That's crazy.
It's almost like someone campaigning to get you fired
Yeah,
from the
no.
court because of what
If
you wrote.
not from the court,
would be
I understand
unfair.
the board of directors comment, but only because as it's almost like you're a public figure, like you're the little politician of the school, and it's kind of, it's. I just think that if you are representing, you need to kind of represent, and yeah, maybe it's two separate spheres. Maybe like student publications is different than the students' union,
Right.
sure, but I mean, those are both things that you can put on your resume. They are you, and you can't just be one way and then pack up a different suitcase and go somewhere else and be like, yeah, no, I'm now this person. And it's like, we see you on campus and we've registered you, but you've written this article and you've been on the board, and maybe they're not discussing these kind of issues on the board, but it's, I don't know, like I understand and I sympathize with the people who,
Saying Spencer should be kicked out of the board.
no, not kicked off the door, but I understand where that came from. Like, I understand
Right.
where that comment came from. I think she took it too far and maybe didn't understand really the kind of difference, because
Right.
Laurier is very small, so maybe she thinks that, I don't know, it's somehow related. And I would never ever suggest that you be kicked off of the board, because you were put there, like you said, and you've never been anything but obvious when you have to campaign to be voted in. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be nothing but who you are. So I don't think they can just take that away, but I can see where if there's like an opinion that
Well,
it's very rash. That
I think
just-
the most important thing then is to find a middle ground. There's some things that we should obviously be very angry about. For example, if we got an article that was blatantly racist, I mean that's clear.
Yeah, we would never.
Or
we'd never
blatantly
print it.
sexist.
Yeah.
I mean, like fuck women. But
We had one.
well, we would never
rule.
publish that
Nope.
because that's obviously a breach of certain social conducts that we've come to accept. But I do not think that being either pro-life or pro-choice warrants that sort of reaction, or the sort of reaction that a racist or a sexist argument will. So on that note, I think we should all remind ourselves of the importance of, as Spencer said, freedom of speech, freedom of expression, even speeches and methods of expression that do not, align with ours. That for me is probably the most important foundations of a democratic, of a free society such as Canada, such as Laurier's. And if we're implicitly or explicitly rebuking people for speaking their mind on heavily contested issues such as abortion, then we are, in effect, breaking the very rules on which our society has been founded.
Yeah. I will say, like, if people read something anywhere that they don't agree with, hear something they don't agree with, rather than attacking the person who wrote it,
Attack
like
their arguments,
separate the person and the idea, have a conversation about the idea. Like, Cara, you wrote a piece in rebuttal, you didn't attack Spencer.
You
know,
didn't
like,
mention Spencer at all.
yeah,
and
that's, exercise your democracy, exercise your right to speak, and rather than attacking people and
you lose credibility otherwise. Like, if you the commenters lose credibility.
Right.
We don't take you seriously if you're just going to be like, you should be kicked off the board. And it's like,
and it hurts. It hurts your argument if you're making any at all. If it just makes you seem unread and even more ignorant than the very arguments that you are seeking to rebuke.
Yeah. No person would share their opinion ever if it was shot down and attacked every time.
In the way Spencer's was,
Yeah, like, we need just separate, like you said, person and
an argument.
and an argument sometimes. Like, it's Just, yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. We're all sitting down here. We're all
Yeah.
talking about, we're not punching each other in the faces
No.
yet.
No.
We're not doing any of. We're very civilized about it, and I mean, you can all tell. It's very obvious that Spencer and Cara disagree to no small extent on where they stand with abortions, but here they are sitting next to each other, and it's not a zero-sum game. There's room for civility and there's room for productive dialogue, regardless of the differences in opinion.
Yeah, and to highlight exactly what you're saying, and you brought up a great point. If someone were to send us some racist article into the court, of course you wouldn't publish it, and that's because it is a far out there, fringe, ridiculous, ludicrous opinion. But then you can even look at the history of racism, and that was overcome by people stating their arguments, showing why racism is ignorant and wrong,
Which at
etc.
that time was an unpopular view.
Yeah, exactly. It was an unpopular view at the time, and
Such as
only
yours.
through only through freedom of speech were we able to show that racism is wrong and immoral, and we were able to extinguish, or not totally, but partially extinguish that from our society. And that shows that freedom of speech is a powerful tool that works to our benefit. It works to finding and discovering truth. Shutting someone up does not in any way help the public discourse. Even pick your most noble value that you hold. At one point, that was a fringe opinion. That was a opinion that no one would have shared, and only through discussion and debate have we been able to get that to the forefront. In Canada, we can say, horrible things about religion. That never used to be the time. We never used to be able to say that. And only through fighting for freedom of speech have we been able to expand the debate and expand the discussion. So to shut one side up because you disagree with them, I mean, you should always look at yourself and say, what do I believe, and how would I feel if someone were to shut me up?
Did you guys have closing points that you wanted to bring up before we go to a music break?
I guess really quickly in rebuttal, obviously I agree with you and everything that you said, and the way in which you have to approach anything, because I'm going to continue publishing things, I'm sure you are, and it might not always be something that people agree with. So just to people who comment, they are also allowed to their own opinions. That was really horribly said. But yeah, they can also share how they actually feel, and I don't want you or me or anybody else to think that they're being silenced or told to shut up, so to speak, just because somebody else is kind of pushing this debate. So if people moving forward, if people try and make sure that it's not necessarily a personal attack, then that can be a continuation of the dialogue. Otherwise, it's...
Yeah, as long as, you can definitely voice your disgust with whatever is written or said anywhere. As long as,
like
you
you could have
try
written
to
it,
do
and
it.
100 people could have said, I disagree, and that's not shutting you up. That's 100 people with their own opinions.
Well,
Yeah,
but then
exactly.
it's
So that's
different
important.
when they say Spencer.
Yeah, but
so
that was like,
Spencer's
yeah,
an
but that was
asshole,
like
or-
a few of people, and I don't know like what that situation was about. That person needs to reevaluate.
I think it was more than a few.
Yeah,
people,
it was a
but-
tidal wave, a
Yeah.
tidal wave
It's
of
a
people,
heated topic.
and yeah,
I think it'd be really interesting, to be honest with you, to have this discussion if Spencer was a woman. And I know I keep bringing that up, but I'm actually serious. Like somebody who's pro-life.
Well,
you have to divorce the arguments from the person. I'm not an argument. An argument is what I'm saying. It shouldn't matter
because
who's
it's
saying that
just
argument.
the idea that it
I
happens.
think she would like to just see, a pro-life
I wonder
woman.
if
But
it
they're
would be different,
they're
that's
quite
all.
Quite a
you
lot.
said.
We have
Yeah.
pro-life women writing for the court. I mean,
Yeah,
Maybe,
absolutely.
maybe this is a call then for
I just think it'd be
female,
interesting to explore that.
pro-life
It'd be really neat.
pro-lifers to come in and write, perhaps. But yeah, thank you too for coming in.
For sure. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to go to a music break now.